Well, here we are. Yes, so the inner cover is on the gearbox, and we are kind of getting ready to fit the internals and then put the outer cover on. Well, no, we were, because we've just put the inner cover on, and we've done up the nut and the main shaft and so on. And I posted the video, and then someone wrote in, sorry, forgot the name. Someone wrote in and said, "Oh, right, that's interesting. So you're not going to fit the bearings to the selector shaft then?" And I'm like, yes, these little roller bearings here that go inside, sort of below the sort of the gearing on the shaft just below it, which you fit as you fit the inner casing. So I'm very glad someone wrote in, because I'd have probably, because I had these bearings at the back, these roller bearings at the back of my mind, but I kind of like forgot about them. I knew there was something to do with the outside, and but of course they actually go in there around the selector shaft, or I think they call it, what do they call it? They call it a camshaft in the manual, and I've actually written gear chain shaft on here, but it's the selector shaft. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is take all the inner casing back off, then fit these roller bearings around the selector shaft, and then put the inner casing back on again. Now, at this point, it's very worth remembering and noting Robert M. Persig and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, his famous book, because in that he says, right, if you do something and you do it wrong and you have to take it all apart again, it's a total pain, but look at it as a positive experience, because you do it twice as fast, because you've done it once and you know where everything goes, and B, you always learn that bit more about what it is that you're rebuilding. You understand it a bit more. It all begins to make a bit more sense. So don't be too downhearted. If you've got to take, like, I've got to take all this apart again, yeah, okay, it's a pain, but it's a learning experience. I'll not forget about these bearings again in a hurry, and you do kind of understand everything a bit better and work out the best way of fitting this casing with the bearings in, which we'll do when it comes to it. I'm not going to film taking it all apart again. We've done that, but we'll film trying to pack, because of course the main problem we've got now is making sure that these bearings, because they're obviously loose, that they stick around, and that when we put the casing back on, that they're not dislodged. That's our main problem. Okay, well, there we are. Happy days. Right, here we are. We've got the inner casing back off, which was actually harder than anticipated, because the top hat push that goes over the main shaft for the kickstart had become stuck on the main shaft, probably with the bearing seal that I'd used, and so I couldn't get the cover wouldn't come off, so I had to heat that up to get that to come off, so that I could then take the cover off. And not only that, but of course everything's absolutely slathered in grease, and so there's just a horrible messy job. But there we are, we've got the cover back off. Here are our 12 little roller bearings, little barrel bearings, and we've got a groove here in the selector shaft. And so what we're going to do is those bearings all sit in there, sideways in there, sort of vertically, and then this is the sort of the actual aperture, and if you notice, it's got a nice bevel on it. So as we push that down, when we go to fit it, we push that down, and so that bevel serves to push the bearings in, make sure they don't get unseated, and hopefully it will go down all okay. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some grease now, and I'm going to stick these bearings in with grease all the way around, and when that's done, then we'll try and put the cover back on again. Okay, there we are. All the little roller bearings are fitted in that groove in the selector shaft. Okay, there's 12 of them, and they're all pushed in, held in with grease. And then we've greased the. This is the bevel, and that's going to go and hopefully go over and make sure that they don't slide out as we put the cover on. I'm also going to put some bearing seal back on this main bearing, but this time I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go on the kickstart bush or top hat sort of bush at the same time, because it just seized on before. Not that it matters, it's just a pain to get off. Right, okay, yep, so I think we're all ready. I'm just going to put some bearing seal on there, and then we're going to try and put that, I'm going to try and put the cover back on without disturbing the bearings. I just mentioned that I am just a little worried because, of course, if one of these bearings comes out, it can easily just sort of fall into the gearbox and without me knowing, and and heaven forbid that it then decided to jam between two gears or something. Don't bear thinking about. So I need to be 100% sure that when I put the inner cover on, that those bearings don't fall out, basically. Okay, here we go. Ooh. That's good. The advantage is you can see straight away that the bearings are, yeah. Double check. I think that's just a bit of grease there. Just check it's not a bearing. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Luckily, yeah, you can see quite clearly when you put the casing on that the bearings are okay. It's really good. Right, I'm just going to put the 5 nuts back on. Then I'll put the kickstart mechanism back on. But it's just as before, so I'm not going to cover it again. We've done it before. 5 nuts hold that down. Then the kickstart mechanism, ratchets and so on there. Oh, there's one thing actually, yeah. So I think when I built it, the last thing I did, I noticed how worn the kickstart ratchet was. It's taken, it's obviously taken quite a hammering over the years. I don't know how clearly you can see, but the teeth are pretty worn. So I was going to order a new one. And when I rang up Jeff at the Area Owners Club, who specialises in the gearbox, he said, well, these ratchets, he said, they look really beaten up, but he said they last forever. And he said he recommended that I simply reuse this one. He said, I know it's beaten up. I sent him photos. He said, yeah, it looks pretty beaten up, that, but he said it'll probably it'll still be going when I'm long gone. So we're going to reuse that one. Right, I'll be back in a while when all that's done. So there we are, as you were, several hours later, back to where we were a few hours ago. But now we have some roller bearings around the selector shaft, which helps. I just kind of forgot about them completely. They were there at the back of my mind, and I knew they went in, but I was thinking, I just kind of forgot about them. I was thinking they went in, like now, but they don't. They go in obviously before. And thanks to sorry, I've forgotten the name again, but whoever it was that wrote in and said, aren't you going to fit the roller bearings then around the selector shaft? I think, oh no, of course. So what did we learn? According to Robert M. Persig, well, we learned that if we get some bearing seal on that kickstart bush, it locks it to main shaft, and so that stuff works pretty well. Yeah, and we learned how to put those were really fiddly getting those bearings in. They didn't want to go in, 12 of them, but they went in eventually, and you know, at least we know how to do that and everything. So we have learnt and gained from that wonderful experience. And here we are back, and now we are actually getting ready to start putting the various mechanisms in the outer casing. Hurrah!